Guys, how you doing? It's Dom here. Just had a wonderful chat with Justin Warfield about She Wants Revenge and the future there, his solo material, new single Everything to Me, working as VP of Downwrite, which is a fantastic initiative, bringing artists and their supporters closer together. Just a fantastic chat. We walked through New York City. Obviously, I wish I was there in person, but I was there over Zoom. Part of it's the audio, just because of the nature of you know, traveling while talking. And part of it is video, so stick around till the end and you'll be able to see more of Justin. But yeah, it was really cool kind of to talk about his history with hip hop music and his passion for hip hop and then how that led to She Wants Revenge and musical influences, his vocal as well. I'm such a fan of Justin Warfield's vocal too, so it was great to get some insight into that and a real personal touch from Justin. So thank you so much for watching this, guys. Thank you so much for supporting us, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Because I guess you've been through quite a lot in your career. You mentioned, traveling all around the world and stuff. Like how do you define success? What does success mean to you as a person, as an and as an artist? Because you've been through so much.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, I think being happy,
Yeah.
And then, I think the second thing is just doing what you want to do and what you love to do, and being able to do it, because most people go through their life not being able to do the things they want to do and wishing they could do something else. So I think that I think the truth is just if you're chasing something, whether it's money or a Grammy, once you get that, they're just
Yeah.
If the measure of success is happiness and doing what you want to do, then there's no end goal. It's just what I mean.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man.
Did you hear me? Did it cut out? Or are we good?
Yeah, it cut out a bit, but I got most of it. Yeah, I got most.
Oh well, let me just say again real quick. So what I was saying was it's if the measure of success is doing what you love and being happy, then there is no goal, and so there's nothing to chase. You're just doing, and it's the action of doing. And then if you have something that's a goal, whether it's getting on the charts, or whether it's winning a Grammy, or whether it's, getting an award, or whether it's achieving a goal in general, then if you don't achieve that goal, then you're going to be unhappy. But if you're just doing what you love, you're kind of winning,
Absolutely.
And what I've done for 30 years is following the urges that I have to make the kind of music that I want to make and live the kind of life that I live. And even though I don't really believe in regrets, on the whole, most of the choices I've made, I can pretty much stand behind because I'm happy now.
Yeah, I'm really pleased, man. It's good to hear because, again, you've done quite a lot with your career. And I guess if you look back at where you were when you did Field Trip to Planet Nine and that kind of a different, it feels like a different world now, I guess, musically. But when you look back at who you were and you started as an artist and as a creative person and to who you are now, how would you say you've changed and developed as a person, since from the beginning of that career, from the beginning of your career 30 years ago to now?
Well, I mean, I just grew up, you know what I mean? Right. It's in some ways I feel like I'm still have the curiosity and the sense of exploration and doing the things that I sort of trying new things and not being jaded.
Yeah.
And so I definitely try and still be in a state where it's I don't know everything and I'm willing to learn and experience things. And at the same time, I'm also I know so much more musically. So the ideas that I have, I can execute and I can just do. Whereas I didn't really know what I was doing when I did Planet Nine. That's part of the reason why it was brilliant. Because I was just I had all these ideas and I wanted to get it all out. And it's just trying my best to make sense of it all. Now I feel I'm in an interesting place where I know how to like play instruments and sing and write and rap and do all these things, but at the same time, I'm not like I don't know so much that I get caught up in that. I can also turn that part of my brain off and be like, and just let cool shit happen.
Yeah, yeah, man. Nah, it's really exciting, I think, and listening to like Everything to Me, obviously, which you just came out with the single. Like, would you say like that's a good representation of where you are now as an artist? We'll talk a little bit about She Wants Revenge, because I know that you're going back out on tour with that project as well. But with this new single and this Everything to Me stuff that you've just released, does that represent where you're at now?
Well, you know, I mean, I think in a way, so I have a full-length album that I'm going to be dropping and putting out, and like, and I think that Everything to Me points more towards that, and sort of the sonics of like a bit of shoegaze, a bit of baggy, a bit of like just the melodicism and the things that I do that are sort of like alternative rock and new wave, that sort of are hinted at in She Wants Revenge. It's just not as dark as She Wants Revenge. It's a bit guitar heavy compared to She Wants Revenge. So when you say like, is that an indication of where I'm at? Like in this lane, yeah, but like the difference between like where I was at in the past was like, there's been times where I like jump between styles, and there's been times where I combine them all together. And right now I'm in a place where like when I'm doing She Wants Revenge, it sounds like She Wants Revenge. When I'm doing Warfield, it sounds like Warfield. And when I'm doing hip hop, it sounds like hip hop. And I'm still doing all of those things. It's just like three different sides of me that I sort of keep a little bit separate just for the purity of the music. And because I see each one being like a stylistic vision, like there's a big difference between like Diamond Dogs and like Low and Lodger and Heroes, or like there's a difference between like Princes Around the World in a Day, or like, you know, Love Sexy, or like Purple Rain, or, you know what I mean? So like the people that I was into growing up didn't just have one style or one sound, and sort of like we're able to do different things. And most people don't also have the ability to do hip hop and alternative rock as seamlessly. So those are two things that I'm able to do, but I have to really, I think the thing that people don't sort of know about what I do is I have to really be compelled to make that music. Like I don't just sit down and go, oh, I'm going to do hip hop. Like I have to really be in the headspace to want to do that. So I've been wanting to make a hip hop record for about 5 years. But like I finally just like bought like an old, like a remake of an SP 1200 because there was a very specific sound I wanted to do. So yeah, like I got this drum machine and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna make a hip hop record. But like I got super busy and I was like, well, I actually kind of want to do this other kind of sound. And I kept sort of staying on with the course of music that I had with what I'm doing with Warfield, which is a different sort of energy that's like everything to me. But at the same time, I'm also like, I'm setting up a new studio because I'm moving house, and I'm like putting up my old mixing board and like a lot of old drum machines, and I'm already anticipating the next sort of project that I'll work on. And I don't know if it'll be like Warfield stuff, or I don't know if it'll be like a hip hop record. I just don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I kind of just have like a lot of ideas and a lot of tools to express them, and not a lot of time. Because you have like a busy life and you're doing your thing, and you're like, damn, like I want to do this, but I also want to do this. And it's like, it's really hard because there's just so many
Yeah.
different things I want to do musically to leave behind. And so we'll see.
I get that, man. I get that. And I think that I did want to ask you, you know, because again, this is, you know, I've listened to your stuff over the years, and I don't know if it's right me saying this, so you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but did sort of post-punk and that sound steal you away from hip-hop? Because you went from the hip-hop stuff and that to sort of doing, you know, She Wants Revenge. Like,
Well,
your passion from hip-hop is still there. I get that.
Well,
but like,
yeah. Well, I would actually say this, that if anything were to have stolen me away from hip hop, it's that when I was doing hip hop, I was really like very focused on a sound and what was happening musically between myself and my peers in this era, right? Of like early 90s hip hop and what we were all creating on the West and East Coast. And I was a part of that. But at the same time, I was listening to like Sonic Youth and Jane's Addiction and going, man, like this makes me feel like Tribe and Jungle Brothers and De La and like Public Enemy. Like I want to do that too. And so nothing exactly stole me away so much as I was like, I want to now do that. So it was my own sort of wanting to find other sort of form that stole me away. And the truth is that was like 1994 and She Wants Revenge started in about 2004. So there was a lot of life in between. You know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of things that happened in between that. Makes sense? So it's like it would be too simple to say post-punk stole me away, because post-punk is sort of like was never a huge part of my life, and it was a part of the influences that I was obviously into growing up. Although it wasn't like when I was like a teenager, I wasn't listening to like Gang of Four and like Magazine. I was listening to like the Smiths and like Duran Duran and Depeche Mode and like a lot and like Prince and hip hop. So like, even though there is a bit of post-punk and She Wants Revenge, I always think that like when we started She Wants Revenge, it was more like we were two DJs who and like started making music that to me sounded like a cross between Suicide and like it was like if you mix like the minimalism of Suicide with like Depeche Mode and Prince. And that was like, whoa, no one's really blended this shit together like that. And so, you know, I felt like I had sort of expressed as much as I wanted to express in hip hop by the time I finished my first record. And then I was like, if you would have asked me when I finished Planet Nine, what kind of album I wanted to make, I would have told you I wanted to make an album that sounded exactly like Ritual De La Habitual by Jane's Addiction. And most hip hop artists weren't saying that at the time. But then like a couple years later, I discovered like Sebadoh and Pavement and Guided by Voices. And I was like, oh, like you can, there's a rawness to that feels like Run DMC or like EPMD or really primal, simple, guttural, punk almost hip hop. And then I sort of started to get deeper into that world, right? And then my group 1 Inch Punch, when we were based in London, was based on sort of how do you combine Guided by Voices and Mobb Deep? And, you know, and sort of that's where I was at the time. And, you know, that American indie rock was influencing even at the top of the charts in the UK, because Blur went from Park Life to, you know, the self-titled record and Song 2. And Graham Coxon, who's one of my biggest guitar influences and just influences, like he started listening to Pavement and American indie rock, and then Britpop changed. You know what I mean? So like you take these influences and like, and it's like everybody wants to be something. And sometimes it's something outside of yourself, and the way you try and execute that is how you create something new. And if, you know, I'm into a lot of British music, and like, you know, if Bobby Gillespie wasn't into the MC5 and into like Northern Soul and stuff, then maybe you wouldn't have like Screamadelic, or you wouldn't have,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so
I
it's
do.
just like,
I do.
as a student of music, like, I think that like having the aspiration to make a record that feels like Bowie, Mobb Deep, and Guided by Voices is what is made me interesting and different then, but it also made for a more complicated path for me
Yeah.
because it's not the easiest thing. So when She Wants Revenge happened, it's been great, but along the way I've needed to make hip hop. So I put out a hip hop mixtape called the Black Hash Cult mixtape in 2011, and that's like a real reflection of like 20 years after, almost to the date I made my first rap record. I made a follow-up,
Yeah.
as like a kid, somebody turning 40. And that's like crazy to be like, you make a record when you're 18, and you make a record when you're almost 40. 20 years later, you're like 20 years old, you're 18 years old, then you're 38 years old. And if you measure those two records, it's really interesting. And like, I just try and make music that's really like honest and real for who I am at the time. And some of it's great and some of it's trash, but like, I gotta just follow my instincts. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. I respect the journey you've been on. I do want to ask you, because your vocal has always really kind of impressed, motivated me. I've always, because I think I first discovered you, I think it was on a Placebo record years ago.
Yeah.
And then obviously listening to She Wants Revenge and your hip hop stuff, your vocal it's very interesting and diverse. Like, where did you find your voice? Like, when did you discover the range? Can you tell me, sort of take me back to when you figured out you could sing, when you figured out you could, get that diversity in your range? Because again, it's an incredible vocal you have,
Thanks, man. Well, when I first started rapping, I just probably like wanted to sound like Rakim. And then eventually I realized that I had a higher voice than Rakim, but a low speaking voice. And when I started when I started rapping, I rapped really the best when I rapped along to people like Africa, Baby Bam from the Jungle Brothers, or Q-Tip from Tribe. And they were influences, or De La, or like, people like that, rather than being like aggressive. So that was my rap flow. Because if you listen to my speaking voice right now, right?
Yeah.
Like my rap voice is much closer to my speaking voice than it is yelling on Bug Powder Dust. When I did Bug Powder Dust, I almost blew up my voice, and I was just trying. I didn't know. Whenever I've done something sort of like that was a breakthrough for me and I found a new voice, it was always because I didn't know what I was going to do after I wrote it until I stepped into the booth and rapped it or sang it. And then I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. So for example, like when I'm talking right now, my rap voice is real similar to this. So if I was like rapping like my first single, Season of Vic, some people, they flip, some flam. It's like my speaking voice, it's not like I'm putting on a voice. Like it's pretty close, right? But like when I did Bug Powder Dust, I was like, always hit the tape with the rough styles. You heard psychedelic, and I was like, that doesn't really sound good. And so I got in the studio. It's like, always hit the tape with the rough style. And it's like, it's almost like a more serious Beastie Boys just screaming. And the Beastie Boys are one of my biggest influences. So I found that voice by yelling in the studio, and actually, that's not true. I'd done it on Dip Dip Dive on my first record. So I was like, oh, if I just yell, it'll sound tougher. And I was like, can you just distort the vocal? And then we found that sound. When I wrote Tear You Apart, it was a long piece of paper, and I didn't know I was going, got a big plan, his mindset, maybe it's trying in the right place. And I was like, that doesn't really sound good. It needs to be more intense. And I'm like, but not yelling. And I was like, how do you find the voice to do that? And it's like literally experimentation. And I'm going like, well, what sounds like passion and energy without being anger. And it's not yelling. And then I was like, I just started singing it. And I was like, got a big plan, his mindset. And all of a sudden it gets really, and I'm like, ooh, that kind of sounds like Wall of Voodoo or the B-52s, like if you listen to like, your own My Own Private Idaho. If you're like, not my own, if you listen to Private Idaho, you're like, you're out of control. The rivers that roll. You fall into a river and down to Idaho. And it's like the voice is like super like it's like almost like a cross between like Ian Curtis and Jim Morrison. And like for me, when I started hitting those notes, I was like, oh shit, I can hit something that sounds aggressive. But I actually realized when I was making my 1-inch punch record, I was still trying to sing really high, like Bowie or Perry Farrell or John Lennon, like my three sort of biggest vocal influences up to that point. They all had high voices and I had a low voice. And I would find that when I would sing along to Iggy Pop or Lou Reed, it was much more, you know, natural for my voice. Like if you hear my speaking voice now, if I just sort of go, you know, standing by the corner, suitcase in my hand, like that's much closer than me going, coming down the mountain. You know what I mean? Like that's not my voice, right? And so like it's not natural for me. So what's natural is like, you know, vicious, you hit me with a flower. Like that sounds like my voice, right? So you sing what sounds good for you. And what I realized in the 1-inch punch record was there's a song called Orson Welles' Martians. I'm singing super high. And then one part I go, I just did a note and I went, whoa, I've never sang low before. And I remember thinking about that and going, why don't I sing all the notes like that? You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. And so you just find it, man. And honestly, when I went from being a rapper to doing my band Supernaut, I couldn't sing. I was fucking terrible. My voice sounded terrible. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what suited me. I wrote stupid lyrics. I went from being a great lyricist with hip hop to writing really like on the nose lyrics as like a rock singer. And it took me a year of making a bad record to then go, oh, well, let me just try making incredible lyrics with incredible melodies and finding a voice that suits me. Yeah. And I went from doing Supernaut in 95 to like in 96, I did 1-inch punch, and it sort of melded all the things I'd done in the past in a good way. So there's no like secret. It's just totally experimentation and finding it. And I'm still finding it. The only difference is now, if I do a rap record, I know exactly what I'm going to rap like and what I'm going to sound like because I found that voice. And if I do a She Wants Revenge record, I know that it's going to be pretty close to a Warfield record vocally. The only difference is with She Wants Revenge, there'll probably be more synths and like a little bit of a darker sound. And if I do Warfield, it's going to be super guitar heavy and like really like a little bit more 90s than sort of 70s and 80s.
Yeah. Thanks for talking me through that, man. Because again, I've always been impressed by the vocal. I think there's one thing I do want to ask. You know, I've got a couple more questions. I think because again, you've kind of you've just mentioned you're still finding stuff out. You're still creating. One of the jobs I do during the day is work with young people who struggle with motivation. They want to create music and they want to build stuff, but they look at people like yourself and they go, "Well, I'm never gonna be able to travel the world. I'm never going to do that." And they have that crisis of confidence. And I wonder, Justin, you know, even though you've been able to do all this stuff, have you ever had a crisis of confidence? Have you ever struggled, you know, with motivation in that way? And how have you overcome that if you've been able to do it? Because, you know, by the looks of things, you've always been very successful with your creative flow and being able to succeed in the music industry.
Well, there's definitely been years where there weren't. And then there's been times where it just changes, man. But like for me, like, I mean, if you have self-limiting ideas that say I'll never be able to do that, then you never will be able to do it. But you never know what's possible until you try it. And the one thing that I never had was a lack of confidence or a lack of sort of fuck it or a lack of like I'll just try it and I'll see. And I think it's good to be a little bit fearless and not worry about failing and not worry about the outcome. Like when I started making music, I never thought that I would be traveling the world doing it. I was just like, I like making music in my room. And like eventually you have the courage to play it for somebody or do something with it. And so I for sure feel like it's funny. There's a dude in front of me who's wearing a shirt that says risk takers. And honestly, that's like the thing. Like, are you really willing to just take risks? And like, to me, that's what it's about. I think that's what we're talking about, right? With the genre stuff, with the voice stuff, with putting yourself out there. Are you willing to take a risk? And I am. And I think if you're talking to younger people, especially who are like, I can't do that. Well, first off, erase can't. I would like direct you to like interviews with Tyler, the Creator, who, besides being a big inspiration to me, is also like a friend. And like, I stay inspired by looking at younger people like him who have achieved more in half the time on the planet than I ever have. And it's because he's like, I'm a fucking unicorn. I could do anything I want. And like, that's the attitude. And I look at him and I'm like, damn, I had that spirit when I was young. So I got to go back to that. And so I think it's about believing in yourself, because there's enough people in the world who will try and like doubt you or like hold you back or like not help you, that if you don't think you can do it, then how are you going to ever do it?
That's true, man. Yeah, that's true. I mean, as an extension of that, then, you know, what is the biggest lesson you would impart on someone? The realities, I guess, because again, the realities of working in the music industry, being able to make music full time as a career, as you've been able to do and create so many different things. What are some of the realities that you wish you'd maybe have known when you started out that you know now that you would impart onto any young person who, you know, maybe doesn't fully understand the realities of working and living, you know, within the music industry, as a creative person as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's the best time in the world to ever be a creative person, because you have the access to the tools and to disseminate your music and get it out there. Nothing has changed except for the delivery system. Yeah, sort of the brass ring at the end of like, you know, your record on the side of Tower Records or like being on the radio or MTV has changed. But like ultimately, like, you could have like 1 billion streams. You could have like a viral TikTok sensation. You could be like the most listened to person on SoundCloud. You could like, it just doesn't matter, man. Like all you have to do is just make good music, be honest, take the time to develop. Don't be in a hurry to like see the results of it. If you love doing what you do for the sake of doing it, and you do it in an honest way, and it's real to you, you will find other people who it will be real to and who will feel it, whether it's like 2 people or 2 million people. So just do your thing. That's like the only thing you can really do, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely, man. I do love that. And thank you for your honesty and openness about that too. You know, it's cool to get some of your thoughts across. In terms of your message then, because obviously we're in the UK and, you've got this new material coming out in the world, you know, what is your message for fans in the UK that have got behind you, whether that's been with Warfield, with She Wants Revenge over the years, with any of your other work, because obviously you've got a history in the UK. You mentioned friends.
Yeah.
What is your message to those people that have supported you over in the UK and around the world, those people that have been with you and will stay with you in whatever you choose to do in the future?
Well, I honestly feel like my most like hardcore, like the deepest fans of my music are in the UK. I feel like, you know, apart from like She Wants Revenge, the people that know the scope of my music and the career are mostly people who are from the UK, people who know Planet Nine or Bug Powder Dust or stuff I've done with the Chemical Brothers or the things I did with Placebo or She Wants Revenge. Like the average person that knows the like scope and gamut of the weirdness that I've done are usually people from over there. And it's no mistake that that's where I was embraced. And that's where I had my first real success after Season of Vic, is when Bug Powder Dust blew up. It's because Tim Simonon was like a fan who became a friend and a mentor and changed my life. And like, I will always have a connection to the UK, and London will always be my second home. And so we're about to announce some stuff, and I'm about to be coming back over there. And like, I'm always going to have a musical connection to that place, and to the country. You know, it's not just like the city of London, but like, you know, like I said, like, man, I played from like Southampton and Brighton all the way to Hull and Derby and like, you know, Manchester, Sheffield, in between Birmingham. Like, I've been all over the country and I love it. And people really seem to understand what I do there. And so it's an important place to me. And so just to the people who, you know, who will see or hear this, and yeah, the support is the best. It's amazing, you know.
Yeah, man, absolutely, and well deserved as well. A lot of effort and a lot of passion. I get that passion. Listening to you talk, you feel the passion, you know, and the creativity that's been there for the last 30 years, so and beyond. So it's a pleasure to pleasure to kind of get that from you, man. I think it's fantastic. Okay,
Yeah, man.
just to wind up then, obviously, so you do have a She Wants Revenge tour coming up, obviously, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I know about Downwrite as well and the projects you've been doing with that. I think one of the was it the Everything to Me song you actually wrote for somebody else? I think that's a really cool story. I saw.
Yeah. So quickly, I'm the vice president of A&R and label services at Downwrite, which is a music platform. It's a creator economy music technology platform. In short, it's a platform that allows a fan to reach out to their favorite singer-songwriter, rapper, DJ, musician, band, artist, and say, I love what you do. I want to support what you do. I would love you to write a custom song for me. Or a brand can reach out, or a radio station, or a magazine, or a filmmaker. So we work with individuals and companies who want to create custom music from their favorite artists. So whether that's like somebody being like, I want Cut Chemist to do like to say my name and scratch it into a song and like make over a beat that he did, or whether it's somebody saying, I want Justin Warfield to write a song for me that sounds like Plug Powder Dust or, Tear You Apart. Like someone can reach out, and rather than like buy a piece of art that's like minted as an NFT and non-fungible, they can say, oh, you're writing a song that I know was created for me by you. We're collaborating together. And whether they just give me a bit of inspiration or whether they leave it up to me, I create a song, Downwrite releases it, and that fan or company or brand who commissions that song then is incentivized to not only commission that piece of music because it's made specifically for them in a bespoke fashion, but then they also get a piece of the revenue from it. And so it's like an incredible thing. So somebody hit me and was like, will you write a song for my wife's 25th anniversary? And at first I was a little hesitant because I was like, well, I don't really like do like birthdays and anniversary stuff. I just write songs. And he's like, no, I just write her a song. I just want to give it to her. And I was like, well, that sounds cool. What do you want it to be like? And he's like, dude, I mean, I love these songs. I love these songs of yours, but whatever you want. So like I came up with an idea. I started writing it. I was like, wow, this is a good song. I think I want to put this out. I finished the song. I sent it to him. He gave it to her. She was completely chuffed. And then afterwards, I was like, hey, I want to put this out as a single. And Downwrite was like, well, that's what we do. So we put it out together. And we're about to do a music video for it. I'm going to be playing it at Warfield's shows. And it's just a part of my catalog that somebody's like, oh, wow, that song's about me. And
that's awesome.
It's cool,
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, I think. So that's awesome. But hopefully that will continue, and hopefully people will be able to check out Downwrite and invest time and energy into it, because I think it's a really cool, concept of direct to artist, support as well. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the press and plugging bit then, Justin. Obviously, without me putting stuff in your mouth saying this tour's coming up, this album's coming up, what can you tell me that you've got coming up? What do you want to plug? Where do you want to send people?
Yeah. So you can go to justinwarfield.com where you will see everything that I'm up to. What's really cool, tied into what we're having in this conversation about, is I did the first comprehensive sort of discography and history of my life in music. So it's not completely done because there's a lot of gaps to fill. But if you go to my Wikipedia, you don't really learn anything about me.
Yeah.
And so if you go to justinwarfield.com on the history page, you will see like that it'll start at the beginning and it'll have video, hyperlinks to streaming. It'll have embedded videos. It will have stories and anecdotes. Everything is linkable. Everything is clickable. So you can learn about how I started in 1991 and everything that I've pretty much released, except for like a few things that I'm still archiving. But there's a comprehensive sort of website and sort of discography there, as well as all the different projects. Like it'll show all the She Wants Revenge videos, the band I did with my wife and my best friends, Dream Club. There's like so much stuff that people don't know about me, and it's all there. It's all links to the Bandcamp, to the Spotify, to the SoundCloud. It's pretty comprehensive. Also, you'll see things like links to all the other projects that I'm doing, the things on Downwrite and everything. She Wants Revenge is going on tour for the remainder of the year, and you can go to shewantsrevenge.com to find out all of that. And my Instagram is at Justin Warfield, where you can see all of this stuff, and it's all linked in my link tree. But yeah, man, it's going to be a busy year, making a new She Wants Revenge record, releasing a finished Warfield album. So lots of things going on.
Exciting, man. Exciting. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out, Justin, to talk to me about it as well.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I'm so excited for you, man.